Nam MyoHoRenGeKyo. Nam MyoHoRenGeKyo. Nam MyoHoRenGeKyo. Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo, Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo, Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. Are you healthy, safe? I hope so. I hope all of us, as we practice, are solidifying our strength, our health. A strong practice gives us strength in body and mind. And today on that, I want to continue our dialogue on the 3,000 realms, more specifically on the Lotus Sutra and on the scholarship of Jacqueline Stone as she delves into the teachings, the doctrines of Nichiren and his insights into the teachings of Tien-Tai, and of course the lineage from Shakyamuni through Tien-Tai, Miaolo, Dengyo. And I'll throw in to the ring the reason why today, in our time, in Nichiren's era, in our modern age, why it is the Lotus, beyond all other teachings, that is so singularly important for our practice of enlightenment in this time. And if you hear the noise in the background, yes, it's raining here in Mississippi. What a surprise. Hopefully it'll just be a nice drone behind our study here. I'm just going to start. I know I've already read some of this, but I'm going to start with, where should I start? Flower Ornaments. The threefold world is all the one mind. Tien-Tai Chi speaks of all the waters entering the sea. The Buddha, ourselves, and all living beings are in principle and nature one and without separation. So we've heard this a lot. It's a cliche, right? But let's see what is meant by it. This is termed the impartial great wisdom, the Buddha wisdom, the Gohonzon. Impartial should be construed as all-encompassing. Impartial could mean without problematic of differences. It's not the same as saying all-encompassing. That's a much more inclusive terminology, right? This doctrine of the threefold contemplation in a single mind or in a single thought moment, or the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, is not at all to be found in the various other sutras. This is key. If you're wondering why I sometimes mirror Nichiren, I'm certainly not as vociferous as Nichiren, but I still stand. Nichiren's our teacher. And Nichiren spared no words for any other sect or group that would not place the Lotus Sutra as the pinnacle, ultimate teachings of Shakyamuni. Especially those sects that they ridiculed it. And I'm talking about Zen, and I'm talking about Theravada, And I'm talking about all of these other schools, Amida, Pure Land, all of them. Nichiren just wielded a sword at these people constantly. If you watch any of the Gosho videos, and there's 333 of them, odd number, but, well, it actually is an odd number. but a huge percentage of those Gosho, he says something regarding another sect, doesn't he? And it's not because they're not teaching sutras and sermons that Shakyamuni in fact delivered. Don't misunderstand. What he is saying is that these teachers of these other schools are inferring and implying and twisting those words of those sutras and adding some of their own for their own purposes, their own fame, their own solidity with the government officials, their own egotistical desires for being the more true, right, whatever, the more powerful school. It's about money and ego. But when you look at the sutras themselves, when you actually read them instead of having somebody else forcing their opinion upon you, and this is what Nichiren does, not to force his opinion, but his scholarship. And this is why Nichiren spends so much time reciting these sutras and other parts of these sutras in order to justify what he's saying the Lotus Sutra and these other sutras say. It isn't because he's construing them, right? Like this, was it Shinran? This other sect, this other teacher was saying that the words of the Lotus Sutra are too complex, too difficult to understand. Only a few intellectuals will be able to attain enlightenment with the Lotus Sutra. So let's have these mudras and mantras and let's play these games, which is, this is not part of the teachings. He's going all the way back to Hinayana because it's easier to get people to play those games and amass a larger following than it is to do the hard work of teaching the ultimate way to awaken enlightenment. These words don't come from the sutras, they come from this teacher. And they're promulgated from that teacher to disciples over time. Nichiren writes about this all the time. So Nichiren's doctrine is simply to clearly read the words of the sutras themselves, basically saying Shakyamuni left no stone unturned here, and it's very, very clear what he's saying. And look at Tien-Tai, making it even more clear. Do you see? This is why we never practice Nichiren's Buddhism, because Nichiren's Buddhism doesn't exist. Nichiren's scholarship and his bodhisattva mission was to elucidate Shakyamuni's Buddhism, as it is culminated in the Lotus Sutra. And so other schools that still exist today, unfathomably, continue to shove the Lotus Sutra aside. They'll include it amongst their library of sutras, but they won't use it as their primary ground. I can't understand why, but Nichiren railed against this. Yes, these other teachers are reading sutras from earlier times, but how many times did Shakyamuni himself, let alone Nichiren, make it obvious that the Lotus Sutra is the teaching for this time? Because he knew the capacity of the people today, we don't need to bother with learning these other fundamentals. We already know them. Our evolution as minds, humans, over thousands of years, has shown us that we know full well how our mind works with our bodies. Even with all the mysticism and magical thinking and religions that exist today, we know better. We just know better. So we don't need to rehash all of that stuff. What we need to do is get strictly to work on instantiating Buddha, because it's natural for us at this point not to dance around playing in these other arenas that won't get us anywhere. Or if they do, it'll be rare because we'll be so occupied with playing these little word salad games and these, whether they're still sects doing mudras and mantras and hand positions and blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. So here it is again, Nichiren's words, Jacqueline Stone's words, making Nichiren's words clear, how she relates all of these teachings. Nichiren didn't discover these teachings. He's simply making them obvious without tainting them, without adding his own, let's go this way with it. Nichiren is a reformer because it's the teaching itself that he's demonstrating is clear. Do you follow? Tien-Tai did the same thing. After many years of study, his insights brought him to the answer is right here. You don't need to add all this other crap. That's earlier teachings. People of that time weren't capable of understanding this. We should revel in the fact that it's this easy for us, right? It is not all to be found in the various other sutras. It's not because those sutras were lies. They were for lesser capacity people who had to expand their minds to a degree to finally be able to understand MyoHoRenGeKyo, which was taught in their time as well, but they needed to be brought up. Look, you wouldn't teach your 4-year-old trigonometry. You'd be a fool to do that. Your 4-year-old can't grasp it. Maybe you have the one unusual 4-year-old, okay? Fine. But certainly not a teaching for the masses. Same thing with a 10-year-old, or a 12-year-old, or an 18-year-old, or a 30-year-old. The capacity changes over time. Though the other schools may go beyond the 6 realms, the 6 worlds, right? Hell, hunger, animality, humanity, rapture, right? Or the 8 realms, learning, realization. To clarify the 10 realms, that includes Bodhisattva and Buddhahood, right? All 10. Even if they include all 10, they do not speak of their mutual possession. The 10 and the 10 equal 100. 100 realms, right? Let alone 3,000. In the case of the Lotus Sutra, when we in each moment perceive the purport of 3,000 contemplation in a single mind, or the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, oneself, you and I, being the Tathagata of original enlightenment, is realized and manifested. And this is what you hear me say and Nichiren say all the time. When you chant MyoHoRenGeKyo, you are opening the mind of Buddha. You and I. Now, if you told that to somebody 2,000 years ago, they'd look at you like you were some weird magician. They wouldn't get it. But you and I understand how the mind works. And by study, we understand how Buddhism dissects the way that mind works, right? Perfection of wisdom, the Lankavatara, the Vimalakirti, right? Mahayana teachings really delve into this deeply. Much more so than earlier teachings, because those people weren't ready. Right? The clouds of ignorance part, and the moon of the Dharma nature shines brightly. We awaken from the dream of false conceptualizations, and the orb of the moon of original enlightenment shines forth in all its purity. It's very poetic, but that's what I've been talking about, the nature of energy. And viewing instead of a static permanence in everything we see, understanding that everything is a flow, it's in movement, it's ever changing. See, thousands, even hundreds of years ago, even 200 years ago, 100 years ago, today, people would look at you like you were talking about magic. But we're not, because we have a deep understanding of molecules, atoms, particles, energy. Particles aren't things, they're assemblages of conditions, right? Energy, in potential, in inertia, in momentum. Yeah, these are terms of science, but there's not a kid who doesn't go through high school and doesn't get exposed to this. We are very capable today of understanding that, even though our eyes can't see at that level, we don't have 1,000-time magnification in these orbs and lenses and retina, let alone the information going to our brain. But with our mind, we can see beyond the limitations of our human eyes. We can see with our mind what's actually there. See, you understand what I'm saying. This is the age where we understand that our mind is capable of more than we experience simply with our senses, our samsaric senses. We can see beyond that. And I don't mean make it up. I mean with profound understanding. And this is what comes of enlightening the Buddha mind. The more we enlighten our Buddha, the more our senses become more clarified by mind, Buddha mind. This is the Gohonzon at work. This is the natural ability of wisdom, that the mind contains what the simple senses of samsara do not. They're just not designed or capable for that. Our eyesight, our ears, our feelings, our senses are designed to satisfy samsara. But our mind can go, and does go, well beyond that, right? This is called attaining Buddhahood in this very body. It is also called the worldly passions being precisely enlightenment, and birth and death being precisely nirvana. Remember, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death? So you can go through that cycle of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death in each single moment, well contained in samsara, making permanence, attaching yourself, identifying self with all of these permanent things. I am in that painting. I am this chair. I am this computer. I am this conversation. But it doesn't take a whole lot of thinking about that to see how ridiculous it is. It's very self-perpetuating, isn't it? Self-perpetuating. It's in the words. And yet, enlightenment, MyoHoRenGeKyo, Namu MyoHoRenGeKyo, awakening that Buddha mind. Remember what I said about this being the apparatus? The apparatus to support the mind, which is not this apparatus, but the perceptual entity, Buddha, the perceptional field, if you will, a better term, of clarity of the entire process without being in it. Yes, we're in it, but that's what provides our opportunity to see it. This is why this statement at this time when, I'm sorry, it is also called world of passion, precisely enlightenment being those passions. In other words, this apparatus is what enables our mind of Buddha. Right? This thing is always bothering me. At this time, when we illuminate the Dharma realm and observe it, everything is the single principle of the Buddha way. The Buddha and the beings are one. This is what is meant by the oneness. Being, the energy of manifestation, including you and I, and everything we experience in samsara, is manifest of the engine Buddha. Buddha is within everything because everything comes from the energy of potential. And the perception of that energy of potential becoming energy of formations and being the first nidana into this samsaric realm is Buddha. And to give it that potential energy, that energy of potential, eyes, ears, sound, feeling through this apparatus is the Buddha mind. It cannot exist without this apparatus. It's not some far-off place, some other thing. It is part and parcel of everything instantiated from Buddha mind. Buddha mind being our samsaric instantiation of Buddha. Thus, Tien-Tai, Chi, states in his commentary, every color and fragrance is none other than the middle way. At this time, the worlds of the 10 directions are all the pure land of tranquil light. The 10 directions, you know by now, is just everywhere in this samsaric world, the universe included. Which place can be called the pure land of Amida or of Yakushi? In this sense, the Lotus Sutra states, quote, the Dharmas dwell in a Dharma position and the worldly aspect constantly abides, end quote. So again, the position is the mind, the mind. And everything perceived is Buddha, is in flow, momentum. As for the question whether even without reading the sutra one can attain to Buddha simply by contemplation of the mind ground, the meditation on the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment and the meditation method of the threefold contemplation in a single mind are both contained within the 5 characters MyoHoRenGeKyo. Okay, hang on. Now we're going to talk about what these characters mean. Not the words, the characters, the symbols, the containers of the teachings, the Dharma. And the 5 characters MyoHoRenGeKyo are contained within our one mind. Tien-Tai states in his commentary, MyoHoRenGeKyo is the inner storehouse of the exceeding profundity of the original ground, and so forth. It is, I'd like to have the rest of it. It's in another document, but it is what all Tathagatas of the 3 time periods have obtained. See, there's no difference. The Buddhas of past, present, and future are the Buddha flow, this energy from potential to formation, to formations, to decay and reassimilation. This is all a flow of magnificent little individuations because we individuate ourselves with them. This apparatus to allow us to perceive the nature of the apparatus, Buddha. Thus, when we chant MyoHoRenGeKyo, the Buddha of original enlightenment within our mind appears. So there's no difference between my Buddha, your Buddha, and Buddha. Buddha is just Buddha. It's something we, with our apparatus, can perceive because it is abiding always, with or without mankind, with or without the earth. Buddha is a condition of energy. Whether it remains as potential energy or it creates. See, creates is a tricky word. Any body of water, which is itself a thing, so it's not a great analogy, contains elements that are in, I don't want to use water, energy. Let's just stick with energy. Energy itself isn't dead. It's not stasis. It has fields of energy. Energy itself is not homogeneous. Energy has subtle layers that hover over each other, rub against each other, run into each other. They're very, very, very subtle things. But as a result of the slight differences, there can be actions that occur. And as they occur, other states of energy can appear and dissipate. It starts from this. Should the right circumstances, right? What does right mean? Certain circumstances could manifest in order to create some chain reactions that may amount to nothing or may amount to something, some substantiability. So from potential, suddenly there is something, some phenomena. I don't mean suddenly a chair appears. I mean suddenly weights of energy can change. Some inertia could be created, some momentum. And science is working the other way around, working its way back to quantum fields, gravitational waves. You know, I don't like the terms dark matter and dark energy, although we hear about them all the time, these are areas scientists still, they recognize something's there. They can calculate the massive nature of it. We only with science know about 4 or 5% of everything that exists in the universe. 4 or 5%. Could you imagine if your body was only 4 or 5% recognizable as your body? You wouldn't know much. There's a vast amount of energy moving around that science has yet to grapple with understanding. And so this is what I'm telling you. Energy has potential, but until that potential starts to manifest into an actual momentum, an energy that is in movement and combining itself with other energies to create structure, from that we get particles, and particles turn into muons and gluons and quarks, and then protons and electrons and so on and so forth, and then we get molecules, and then we're off to the races, right? Because now there's lots of roiling energy trying to do something. MyoHoRenGeKyo is that. It opens, speaking of Myo, our body and mind can be likened to the storehouse and the character Myo, to the seal that opens it. Tien-Tai states in his commentary, quote, it opens the secret innermost storehouse. This is termed Myo, or wonderful. What would you term it? So wonderful is a translation. Or amazing. Mind-bending. Picture adjectives. What I just described about potential energy forming into something. The formation comes of these slight disturbances, these interactions that compile upon one another. Right? Formation. It's not a thing yet. It hasn't formed yet. It's forming. And it may stop there and dissipate. Or may move on. Myo. This is Myo. This is unfathomable. But our mind can understand it, right? It demonstrates the correct principles of true and provisional. Therefore, it is termed Ho, Dharma. From this amazing roiling energy, something is formed. Ho. This is the Dharma. This is the understanding. This is the experience of phenomena, Dharma. Do you see how Dharma isn't just the word replacing teaching? The teaching is about the Dharma, understanding the phenomenal. Ho. It indicates the original effect obtained by the Buddha. What's another way to say that? In the distant past. For this, okay, so the effect obtained by the Buddha in parenthetical. The effect is of the cause of, other words, formations forming from what? Buddha, energy potential. So when we chant, we open our maximal potential, our maximal life. How we can turn energy into phenomena. You and I do it. If you think I'm talking magic, watch a woman give birth. If you don't think that's a visceral example of taking energy from the human body around a cell and or an egg, many cells, or cell, and a sperm, and manifesting, forming a human being. Do you understand? This is the nature of everything in the universe included. It's right here. For this, Ren, Lotus, is used as a metaphor. It encompasses everything in the perfect path of non-duality. This is illustrated by Ge, blossom, lotus blossom, Renge. That's quite a visceral example as well, isn't it? That the lotus flower you can observe coming out of the muddy swamp. The day it opens its petals, it sends out its seeds. It's a complete circle of life right there. It blossoms at the same time as it seeds. So I'm using human birth. Look at the birth of a kangaroo. Look at the birth of anything. Look at the process of life. This is what Buddhism is centered around. Just observe correctly what's going on. This is energy. This is energy transforming from potential to formations to form to decay and a return to the ground. This is why Tien-Tai uses the words mind ground. Mind being a state of knowing, ground being this samsaric realm. The two fully integrated. The voice does the Buddha's work. This is termed Kyo, Sutra. This is why we chant. The sutras were chanted. They were songs to be repeated and memorized. This is why it makes complete sense that we would take the summary in 5 characters of the entire teachings of the Dharma, the process, and instantiate it over and over again. Why? Because this is Buddha. This is using the apparatus to instantiate Buddha clarity, mind, Kyo. He also states the word Myo praises the inconceivable Dharma. He's using inconceivable. I wish I'd have thought of that instead of wonderful. They repeat the same things over and over again. Moreover, Myo indicates the 10 realms, 10 suchnesses, and all provisional and true teachings. End quote. Ignorant people may think it hard to understand that chanting the sutra's title and contemplation are the same. Nevertheless, Chuan, 2 of Tien-Tai's Chi-Quan, refers to, quote, reciting or remaining silent. Reciting indicates the sutra, remaining silent indicates contemplation. Moreover, Chuan, 1 of the Su Chiao Yi, the meaning of the 4 teachings, states, quote, not only is it not a waste of effort, it is the essential by which one can accord with the principle. All right, I'm going to stop there today. I find Jacqueline Stone's erudition and scholarship to be very prescient and available to me in my study. I find her scholarship to be excellent and completely in accord with and in line with Nichiren, Dengyo, Tien-Tai, Nagarjuna, and Shakyamuni himself. She doesn't deviate much from the words we're familiar with, and yet she can construct a paragraph that makes so much clarity over what many sutras would spend time elucidating. That little paragraph that I just read, might have been more than a paragraph, but that paragraph on MyoHoRenGeKyo alone, how many times have you thought, I wish somebody could tell me what these characters really mean? Instead of, oh yes, this means wonderful, or people will use the word mystical. Give me a break. Or just these shortcuts to understanding the words, and spend all day talking about the lotus flower because it's something that's familiar and tactile. But I feel like just reading that little bit, let alone with my constant, I can't remain silent. But with our understanding of energy and the processes of life, to read that paragraph is to just suddenly see. I hope that's inspiring to you. It inspires me. It goes beyond words, and this is the difficulty of talking about these things, but the wonder of Sangha, of our conversations about these things, is what makes sparks fly in my mind, your friend's mind, your other participants in MyoHoRenGeKyo. And you'll share different words amongst yourself, and you'll whittle into this to the point where all of you get that major aha, that singular insight that will magnify everything else that you study. And it will make your relationship with your mandala, your gohanzan, strong and powerful and immediate. And this is what I want for your practice. All our practice should be motivated like this. Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to download the podcasts if those are helpful for you. Don't miss on them. Like, subscribe, share. That's a biggie. Let's keep our practice strong throughout the day. Let's chant enough. Let's recite the Gongyo enough that when we walk away, we have that fullness of experience, that magic energy, that strength that buoys us throughout our day. That when things want to become obstacles, we just kindly move them along. You're not an obstacle. That's actually helpful for me. Thank you. Let's have that condition of life. Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.